Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who has built a high-producing mortgage business by blending smart leverage, intentional relationships, and real leadership. As a producing branch manager, she oversees 2 locations, is closing top 10% numbers in the business personally, and helping other loan officers scale from being solo producers to empowered entrepreneurs. If you want to grow without burning out, build a team that actually works, you're going to love this conversation. Gwen, Swain, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Gwen. I'm so excited to have you on. I see you kind of out there in the mortgage world doing some coaching and all that. See you on social media quite a bit. And so really excited to have this conversation because I know you'll add a lot of value to anyone who's listening here today. And I just want to jump right in because your journey into mortgage is a really interesting one. And I don't want to spoil it, but it like you automatically like had a handicap against you, right? Like moving into a new market and those sorts of things. So if you don't mind just kind of like sharing for anyone who's listening, like how did you get started in a mortgage and how did you start to intentionally build?
Yeah, so I'm located here in the Boise, Idaho area, and I moved here in 2016 from Southern California. And when we moved out here, we bought our first house. I'd never heard of mortgages before. I didn't know what one was. I didn't know anybody in lending. I was in fitness before this. And when we moved out here, I ran into the loan officer that did my loan, and she basically recruited me to come be a loan officer assistant. So I started as a loan partner, did that for about 8 months, and then found out I was pregnant with my second child. So I decided it was the time to try my hand at origination. But I had no sphere. We had just moved to Boise, a year and a half before, and I was a stay-at-home mom before I started as my hourly loan partner position. So I had to really build it from scratch. And not only learning the business, but also figuring out how to build that book of business.
Yeah. And so social media, I know, played a big role into that. How do you use it in a way that feels intentional and relational instead of just like salesy? Because I know a lot of people go off the rails with that a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. And I know even as a consumer, like I'm also a social media user. I use it for my business to attract business, but I'm also a target of other people's business. And it's a pet peeve of mine. It's kind of like I don't do cold calls because I hate being cold called, right? So I actually took a social media boot camp, and in that they taught us the formula of 4-to-1. I still use it to this day. I try to, which is every day you're going to do one social media post, one Facebook post that is about your personal life. So those posts are just intended to entertain, to inform, to connect, to educate, or motivate. And then on the 5th day, so if you're posting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just about your life and about engaging content that has nothing to do with mortgage, on the 5th day, you do the post that has something to do with building trust in you as a mortgage advisor. By doing that, people felt like they knew me. It wasn't just buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing. We all have those friends who are in an MLM and they're direct messaging you with this long, script that they've created that's being sent to 100 different people that's not custom at all. And you don't even feel bad ignoring that, right? You may never write back, and that doesn't even feel like you owe them anything in response to that because you know that it wasn't crafted for you. I really took Facebook as a way to network versus sell. And it just became an extension of all of the organic networking that I was doing in real life with the coffee dates and the, young professional networking events and all of that. It supplemented it, but I still try to keep that formula to this day, that 4-to-1.
Yeah. Does that ever feel like difficult for you? Because I know some people struggle with being personal on social media. They don't want to share too much of their life and they're maybe worried that it would turn people off and things like that. Like, was that ever a concern? And if it was, like, how did you overcome that?
You have to be aware of what you're putting out there. I mean, especially during the election, there was so much divisiveness during COVID, right? Anything that you put out there can be misconstrued as, is she on this side or is she on this side? And I disagree, and that can hurt business. So you try to keep it pretty neutral, just in terms of appealing to everybody. I also try to post things that will appeal to my ideal client. So I'm a mom. I love fitness. I love snowboarding. I love Broadway musicals. My ideal client is a fellow mom who's relocating from out of state, who is doing all of her research, online and on Facebook. And so if I can create content that engages and entertains so that they start to know and like me, and then they'll start to trust me when I start to share wins from clients or a closing day photo or a listing from an agent that I'm working with or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like anything. It takes some muscle memory, it takes some routine and some habit. And then after a while, you just organically remember to live stream what you're doing in your real life so that you can keep in the algorithm, you can keep relevant and top of mind. It does the legwork for you. I mean, it's a powerful tool. I could probably spend the next 30 minutes just talking about how to use Facebook for your business, but ultimately, like, if you can get engagement on the non-business posts, more people will see the business post. And
Right.
that's just the hack, right? So you post a thing about Brussels sprouts, love them or hate them, and you get 50 comments and you're engaging with the comments. The next day when you say, oh, we have a down payment plus grant, which is $10,000 forgivable grant, let me know if you like, more people will see that because they were engaging in the Brussels sprout thing. So it's just working the game.
Yeah. Do you engage in any of the groups, or do you seek out groups to kind of see what's being talked about, maybe comment on someone's post, or see if they're asking a question about mortgage or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a lot of moms groups just because I'm a mom. But if you're listening to this and you're a loan officer who's not a parent, but you're really into mountain biking, join the mountain biking groups. If you're into Texas Hold'em, join a Texas Hold'em group because people are not going to be asking overtly, I need a mortgage. And in fact, those are not my ideal posts. Those are not the posts that I would convert anyway because we don't need 75 people competing for that loan. The posts that I like are, I'm thinking about moving from Star to Middleton. What do people think of that area? I'm asking about in moms groups, I'm asking about good daycares in Eagle, and I look at who they are and they live in Colorado. Well, I might send them a direct message and say, hey, I also moved from out of state. My kid goes to this daycare. What brings you to the town? Make a friend, make a friend, make a friend. Oh, by the way, I'm a lender. Do you have any questions? So it's no different than what you would do at a cocktail party, right? You're meeting random people that are there for whatever reason that you have in common. Maybe it's that friend, maybe it's some sort of social event that you're doing. But in that conversation, you're keeping your ears out for life changes, opportunities, things that might trigger them moving. And then you convert those into your referrals.
Yeah. And so for anyone who feels like overwhelmed by prospecting, because I know a lot of loan officers do, and it's, sales, it's the funny thing about sales is people hate selling. And so it's hard. Outside of the 4-to-1 kind of formula there, are there any other non-negotiables that you stick with every week?
I try to have 2 coffee dates a week, just a belly to belly in person. And that doesn't have to be a first date, like a new realtor that you just cold called off of a list. I think a lot of lenders, they really dread prospecting because they think of it as cold calling off a list. Well, I wouldn't want to do that either. I don't do that. I don't like to be on the end of that. So instead, if you just think, okay, every event that I go to or every BNI meeting that I'll drop in on or whatever it is, my end game, maybe it's a chamber of commerce meeting. I won't be successful unless I pull a coffee date out of this. So all I need to do is have an interesting enough conversation with somebody who may know a realtor or have bought a home and worked with a realtor that I can learn about their business. I want to go network with other business owners ultimately, so that I can say, hey, this was really cool. I enjoyed having this 2-minute conversation with you in the lunch line at the speaker that we went to. Do you have a business card? Would it be okay if I called on you for us to have a more in-depth conversation? And so if I can go on 2 one-on-one meetings a week, I will grow my business. It's just business doesn't happen at the networking event. It happens in the coffee after. And so that's been a non-negotiable in my business since I started is I need to have one-on-one business strategy meetings with as many people as will have them with me.
Yeah. And so to transition a little bit, let's just kind of talk about the maturation or progression career-wise for you, because of course you start as an assistant, get into production yourself, and now you've grown into a real impressive leader. What was the moment, or was there a moment where that set in as like, that's what I want to do? Has that become a passion for you, or was it just sort of like the next logical step from a career perspective for you?
It was out of necessity. I mean, I think when I first started in origination, my unique value proposition was you get me. You get all me all the time, right? You want to text me at midnight, I am texting you back. You want me to take your application and review every document and chase every stipulation and underwriting and be at your signing, I will be that person for you. And that worked very well. That differentiated me from the big teams, the loan officers who were already very successful. But you get to a point where it works so well that you are overwhelmed with business. And I was working 12-hour days, and I was like, this isn't sustainable. I was really, my first full year, I closed 48 million, and I'm like, I quit. It's not worth it. I'm working too much. I had a newborn baby. It was just, the money was great, but the work was, to adhere to the level and standard that I had set for myself that got me to 48 million was just not sustainable. I went to my branch manager at the time and I said, I have two paths I can take with this. I can either fire half my realtors and only work with and close 20 million a year and just work with my best friends at this point, right? Or I can hire an assistant. And she was like, don't lose the business you've worked so hard to build, right? Like that would be crazy. And she showed me the math. She's like, ultimately, you're not giving the assistant 50% of your income. You're going to give them, 20% of your income. So more is still more. And you can now take a vacation and but in the short term, when you hire that first person, you go from a 12-hour day to a 14-hour day. I mean, it is because now you've added a second job onto your already, it's really a third job because you're the marketing department, you're closing all of the loans, you're doing the operations, and now you're also the trainer, you're the leader. And you do that for a time, you slow down to speed up. And then once that person, if you've hired the right person and you've trained them all of your skills, you've conveyed onto them, now you can go do one job, which is the marketing, the rainmaker, and they will stay in the office and they will do the operations. So it was definitely a necessity for me because I was disappointing people. I wasn't getting back to them at the speed that I had been used to. I couldn't be two places at once. If I wanted to join a BNI group, I have to be in that room for an hour and a half with my phone off. The phone is ringing. I'm losing business. It's like, or I like to go to my signings. That's always been a really big deal for me. And so if I'm at my signing and I'm getting leads to my phone, it just wasn't, I had grown it too big to do just as a one-man show. So for me, I chose the leadership track with my first hire, and then COVID hit and I hired as quickly and as I grew my team to 9 people in the height of COVID, which was a very different job because in COVID, you didn't have to market at all. It was just about fulfilling as many orders as you can. And then the crash came and we downsized. And now I run a team. Typically it's me plus 3 loan officer assistants and 1 processor.
Gotcha. And so where do loan officers get it wrong when they're trying to build a team? Like what are you seeing as some of the common mistakes that loan officers are making?
Yeah, I think what they end up doing is they stay in the position as the second loan partner, right? So when you're a solo loan officer, you're bringing in all the business, you're lead generating, and then you're also taking the application, reviewing the documents, sending out pre-approvals, working up payments, sending disclosures. I mean, doing all the things, right? Where loan officers, I think, get it wrong is they'll hire the person, but then they won't utilize that person to do all of the second stuff on my list so that they can go do, it's 2 people doing 1 job instead of 2 people doing 2 jobs. And it takes some trust because you're like, I go and I meet with my realtors and, they fall in love with me and we're high-fiving and we're going to be best friends and we're going to go take a spin class together. But I have to tell them up front, your client is not going to be working with me. Your client is going to be working with those who I've handpicked. Everything I can do, they can do faster. Like I have to tee that up because it isn't fair to go and market myself and then all of a sudden they're sending a referral and that referral never even talks to me. So you have to be okay with losing some realtors because they chose to work with you because you were the solo person. And now as you scale, but it's a necessary thing for you to get your life back and to be able to do the best work that you can for the longest amount of time.
And for someone who's growing, like when should someone make that decision, or when should they start to bring someone new on board? Is there a magic number? Is it just when you need it, when it's a necessity? Like what's sort of the warning signs of, all right, you need to start adding to your team?
Yeah, I mean, in my market, it's 5 loans per month warrants 1 full-time employee in terms of just the financials. That's when there's enough margin and enough loans that you can have a second income without taking the loan officer down so deeply. 5 to 1, I think, is a good ratio. And just for context, my average loan size in my market is about 375,000. So do with that what you will, right? And but you don't do it until you know. And for all loan officers, you're going to have big months, small months, big months, small months, because you're going out and you're getting the business and you're closing all the loans and you got to go. And that's okay. I mean, that's normal in the beginning because you can only be one place at a time. The average then comes out to it. And if that average is 5 loans a month, that's when it's time to add that second, because the peak might be 10. You don't go in higher when you hit 10 because the next month is at 1. You start to see a trend. And then when you have enough business to support a full-time hire, because you don't want to do it too soon, it's not fair to that person, right? That person's going to quit their job, they're going to put a notice, they're hitching their cart to your horse, and then if you can't keep that volume up, or if you can't utilize them in such a way that you can go and build your volume, then that's not really kind to that hire.
Yeah. Do you find, and I'm just curious your opinion on this, do you find that putting that pressure on yourself as a loan officer to produce for that new hire, is that helpful to a loan officer more often than not? Or is that I guess, a tight wire?
Yeah, it changes the job, because when I think a lot of times people go into mortgage origination for the income and the freedom, right? It's just like being a realtor. You hear the same thing. I want the income and I want the freedom. When the income really starts to pan out, you lose the freedom. And I think that, like, to let people know, to say otherwise would be misleading, because when I was by myself, I had a newborn baby. So I'm working from home. I would, my mom would come over. I'd go get a coffee meeting. I'd go to signing, whatever. And I could kind of come and do it as I chose, right? And kind of piece together my work week. As soon as I hired an assistant, now I'm working 9 to 5, because I have them there 9 to 5. So I have to be there to train them, to teach them how to do it, so that ultimately I can go to my coffees, but I still start and end every single day at the office. So I think in a way, the first hire is an effect. It's a result of your hard work and your success, but it is also the cause of your next tier of success, because you start to treat it like a business. You start to have weekly meetings. You start to analyze your numbers. And it's almost like they make you better at your job, because you do have the accountability of thinking like, okay, I'm paying this person hourly to sit at the office. If I'm not sending them deals and giving them instruction, then that's just a waste, So it does give you that second layer of accountability.
Yeah, that's so at the end of the day, there's two groups of people that are impacted by all these things that we're talking about, right? You've got your referral partners and then you have your borrowers. And I want to focus a little bit on the borrower side, because, they obviously, without them, what are you going to do, right? When a borrower feels overwhelmed, whether it's because of rates or the payment or the fear of kind of making the wrong decision. I mean, we've got a lot of people right now in the market that are kind of trying to time it out, or they're waiting for the perfect time. How do you help them slow down and just feel more confident about moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a deep question, because there's so many reasons as to why they're hesitant. Sometimes they're right. I like, sometimes when they're like, I just don't know if it's the right time, and you're looking at their financials and they have $45 in their bank account, their credit cards are maxed out. Like, yeah, you're right. And this is going to take their payment from 1,500 a month to 2,500 a month. You start to say, show me that you can put $1,000 a month into the bank before you take on the liability. Like, your job's not changing just because those credit cards aren't going away just because you have a new mortgage. So for some, it is a matter of just giving them a little bit of homework to get there. What I find is a lot of times people are frustrated because they want to do it and they can't, right? It's not so much that they're hesitant. It's that there's some, that second job, we can't use the income from that yet. Or, you've got overtime, but you don't have a history of it, or your credit score is too low that we're getting a refer through the system. The best script that I can kind of like convey that has worked for me is basically explaining the why behind the guides. Okay. So what we tell them, and we come from a place of care, which is, we do not want to put you in a position where you cannot pay this mortgage. Right. And so even though you feel good about it and you're ready to do it, the reason why we're not able to do it right now is because let's say they've been out of work for a certain amount of time, or they've only earned commission for 2 months, or whatever it is. It's like, well, until you get through that a year, how do you know that your employer is going to provide you enough deals for you enough hours for you to get that overtime? We don't know. We could have the best intention, but if this job isn't stable enough, or if we just need more time for you to feel confident that you can also make this payment. So we wouldn't be doing you a service, if we stretched it, or if we whatever, it's there for a reason to protect you. And so when you start to kind of frame it that way, they start to see it as, okay, it's not just about them denying me or them judging me. It's more about, hey, it's probably not even your fault. It's just you work for a seasonal job. You just started. It's April. You started in April. Now it's August. What happens in the winter? Until we can get them to write something saying you are guaranteed, we don't know what happens. We don't want you with the mortgage. You don't want that either. And then they start to kind of like align with you and understand why you're telling them not just yet.
Yeah. And so, having helped so many people in your career, like, are there moments that still just remind you of, like, this is why I do it? Like, or is there a loan, or is it something that just sort of happens every week or what is it that just is a constant reminder of, this is why I love what I do?
When the first time home buyer comes back, the first time home buyer who you were scared about, because some of them, we do have a bond program in Idaho. You put $500 down. So we have literally people who are waiting for their paycheck to use as their earnest money, right? Or waiting for that paycheck so that they can put a deposit on the appraisal. And you go to their signing and you're like, oh, I hope and they're at a 55 debt ratio, right? You're like, I hope this ends well. Well, fast forward, they call you 2 years later and you take a second loan application for them because they're ready to move up. And their income has increased because now they're a little bit older, more established, whatever it is. They've got $60,000 worth of equity, which is equivalent of an annual income for some of these people. And they put $500 down. Like, this was the biggest blessing you could ever do. And all it cost them was an extra $1,000 a month with their rent compared to their buying or their mortgage. Okay. So in the 12,000 extra that you've paid, you made 60 grand. Like, these are people who are not investing in anything. That's the most fulfilling for me, is watching those first time home buyers who are so iffy when you're running AUS and you gain it, you lose it, and you're like, oh my gosh, don't breathe on this file. Let's close it. You call them to make their first payment. You're like, you guys good? Like, okay, you're on your own, little bird, right? And then 2 years later, they're like, okay, we're ready to sell and buy. Now they're putting 20% down on a conventional, and their credit scores have come up because they've got great payment history. Like, it's a life-changing thing that we get to do. And so for me, those are my favorite moments, is when the first time homebuyer comes back around and the story ended well and it's only getting better.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That's amazing. So, kind of as we get towards the end of this here, I want to go back to just like the coaching side of things, because I know you work closely with a lot of other originators that are trying to grow from like the production mindset to business owner mindset. What's the biggest shift that they need to make?
You are not that cool. The best thing I could tell them is you are not that cool, because I think so many they're so worried that if they hire somebody, they're in a point where it's working, right? This is the loan officer that's closed 10 million. So they're already ahead of, most of the game. They've figured it out. They've cracked the code. And they're at this point where they're running up against the bottleneck is them. And they're so scared to hire because they don't want to lose the $10 million business that they won, right? And so just teaching them that if you do it the right way and you focus on becoming a good leader, a good mentor, a good teacher, then you're not that cool. That borrower is going to have a great experience with your other person. There's nothing unique about who you are that borrower can only work with you, even though that got you here. Now you just have to replicate yourself. You got to teach this person how to do good work, hire somebody who compliments you well, and then trust that they will do it. It is such a scary thing to hand that baby over to someone else that you worked so hard to make. And we're 100% commission. We always say it's like easy come, easy go. If you don't dedicate time to learn how to be a leader, then you will never rise above a certain level in this business. That is where the sky blows open. And having run a business of 60 million consistently up to 90 million in my best year, I will tell you, if you're so hesitant to hire because you're just worried your realtors aren't going to work with you anymore, if you have that person calling and giving updates or calling and sending pre-approval letters, don't let that fear and that you're limiting an opportunity for somebody else, right? I mean, the person who trusted me to be their loan officer assistant, who had to understand she's not that cool, she'll let me take her loan apps, has created now somebody who's created financial freedom for myself and now can pass that on to others. So there's a legacy there to it. It's extremely fulfilling if you can get it right. But just as you had to learn guidelines and what's the difference between FHA and conventional, and just how you had to learn Facebook and Canva and marketing and dialing realtors and scripting, you have to learn how to lead people if you're going to take your business to that top 1% tier.
Do you recommend any resources for that, whether it's a book to read, a podcast to listen to, someone else, I mean, how does someone get started in developing themselves as a leader?
Yeah, I think coaching is a big one. I've always hired executive coaches, not even in the mortgage world, just to help me get my head right, because I think we are clouded in our judgment of how we see things because we have such crazy standards and there's so much on the line and we all got into this business because we don't want a boss, right? So then when you become the boss, you probably can't empathize or relate as well to that hourly employee that you just brought on that you were so excited to not be in life, right? So just to hire somebody who can help mentor you and teach you and just be your sounding board so that, I mean, I had a business coach from the very beginning, and I remember meeting with him and saying, close the door. I cannot believe my assistant did this, and I think I have to lay him off today, and this is egregious, and I got to stop the bleeding. And he's like, holy cow, like, you are seeing this as so much bigger than it is. Like, let's just pan out. Is this a pattern? What was the downstream effect? Did he own it? And just helped me become a better manager and leader. And so is there one book? I mean, I'm sure that there's lots of them. I like Brene Brown. I mean, but yeah, I think just hiring somebody who's done it well and then walking in their footsteps.
I love that. Well, Gwen, I just want to say thank you for being on the lowdown and kind of sharing your journey and your wisdom. Clearly, you have done a lot of things right along the way, and I'm sure you may not feel that way because I'm sure you know the wrong things you did too along the way.
I may or may not have a loan in suspense right now. I got to get to. I mean,
Yeah. but I love that you're so open with what you've learned and are willing to share, and I think that's a huge takeaway for me, for anyone who's listening, is a top producer like Gwen who has really done a lot of amazing things that some of you that would listen would love to have in their career, is here just sharing it all. And I think when we have this open hand kind of abundance mindset, good things come back to you. And so, Gwen, I think you're a great example of that. Just thanks for being on the lowdown. And I really look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thanks for having me.